Hello.
Hello.
How's everybody doing? Wow.
Hi.
Does that help? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, we've got a couple of people here. Any thoughts on last week? Anything you want me to go over again, or things that popped up for you? No? Great. Okay. So we'll dive into building awareness. So we talked about last time the fundamental structure of everything that exists, right? Everything that comes into reality and what we understand as three-dimensional space and time comes through awareness into expression. So this is what we all share as humanity, as we connect with each other, as we help each other, as we, offend each other. Sometimes there's multiple layers of self-awareness that happen in any moment. So building awareness is the key to help us free ourselves in liberation more and more over time, right? We get stuck into stories or patterns that maybe bring us suffering or things we can't release or heartache we can't. And awareness is the key that allows us to dive into that shadow world, free those parts of ourselves that are locked in those patterns, and move forward with life, liberated. That is the term of liberation, when we are liberating ourselves as we are moving through these shadow worlds. So it all starts with awareness, okay? Many traditions, many ways of looking at this topic through lenses, cultural lenses, have this witness state that I talked about last time. Yogic philosophy is the oldest one that has that explanation of there is this witness state, this a way of being aware of the situation without being drawn by the stories that are showing themselves. So in a heated argument between people, to have this witness state of self is recognizing the reactions that are happening in that conversation so that you're not being swept away by the identities that are being taken place. And I know that that can be difficult for some people to see or hear. What does identification mean? What does being swept away by the story mean? It means that you're no longer balanced and equanimous, right? In a balanced state of being when you're in those engaged scenarios. So learning how to stay peaceful mind, compassionate of situations is the skill that helps us get through those situations with less and less suffering. So in many spiritual traditions, this witness state refers to the unchanging, observing presence within us. That is this being state that we all share, that we all own. But we have these other things that lay on top of that filter. It's the inner awareness that calmly watches thoughts, feelings, and sensations come and go, remaining stable and untouched amidst life's constant changes. So most of the time, we feel like we're in a river being swept by the currents that are taking us one way or another, right? But this witness state is really watching from the shoreline, watching somebody trying to maneuver through the river. So it's really a different point of view that we're approaching. So in unity consciousness, the yogic philosophy, as one's awareness deepens as we release more and more stories of what we're not, it reveals an inherent oneness with the universal consciousness. By transcending the illusions of separateness, individual experience life as an interconnected whole, right? This is what we're trying to get to, is knowing that we are all the same and we can help each other, because in that we are helping ourselves. Dissolving these boundaries, this between self and others, is really what helps us see each other's with compassion, knowing that, hey, we're the same thing. We may have come up with different points of view. And we're in this space where we're fighting each other's filters of reality. But underneath all of that, I can come to this moment with compassion because I recognize myself in the situation. So the Buddhist cup analogy is, the Buddhists are always talking about empty your cup. You can't learn if your cup is already full. That's kind of what this image is trying to represent. Is we have this space, we have this world that we live in, right? But beingness, this awareness, this removed state of awareness, is basically the cup. And the importance of the cup is the emptiness inside. It's the space to fill that cup with whatever we choose. Now, as young people, we're usually filled with our cup just to learn how to fit in society. So, your parents taught you, oh, you got to be responsible in this way, or this is how we deal with troublemakers, or whatever the situation is, that we learned how to live in the society the way we learn, right? We learn from different experiences, and we all have different experiences that fill that cup. But recognizing that that space is the power, we can fill that with whatever we choose to. So whenever you're finding yourself struggling with, again, a trauma, a way of being, or a way of life showing up in a certain way that we're resisting, in that resistance is showing you the red flag that there's something to be looked at here, right? There's something that is pushing me away from just being equanimous, that balanced state of being. So as I was explaining last time, this conscious awareness that comes through the unified field in its first expression, its basic natured expression. The Buddhists call this Buddha nature, right? It is the inherent, so I'll just describe it, innate, enlightened essence. It's our basic beingness expressed. And most of us lay different layers on top of that either help or hinder us in some way, right? So the Buddha nature is often described as an intrinsic purity and wisdom present in every sentient being, everything that is conscious. And we've talked about consciousness in everything, right? At the base level of awareness, this aligns with the understanding that beneath all conditioning, all mental chatter, all the noise in the head, right? There's a clear and stable, fundamentally enlightened quality of mind accessible to all. This is that pranayama is the movement of energy in the body. But once you can clear everything that is filled in that cup, again, to empty the cup, there is this beingness that most teachers will call different terms. So the Buddhists call it enlightened, right? Yogis refer it to their particular deities in particular state, right? Shiva, releasing the identities of self, cutting off the heads. That's what she wears, a necklace of heads. Killing or separating those egos from ourselves so we can be our truest self, base self, expressing in full alignment. So non-dual ground of being. Okay, so this is beyond duality, the first structure. Unlike states of the mind that come and go, that river that keeps catching us as we're flowing down the river, the Buddha nature is constant and unchanging. It is the thing that holds everything else to play out. It corresponds to fundamental awareness that does not grasp at concepts or distinctions, reflecting on non-dual state where the perceiver and the perceived are not separate things. And this is a very difficult state to understand or even connect with for most people. And honestly, it took me about 5 years of deep meditation before I could even be present with this awareness where my world was happening around me, but I could feel and perceive through this base state of just almost sheer awe, right? Just open joy where you're just like, wow, this is consciousness just unfolding. And that sheer power of movement through each of us has this ability, but we usually layer things on top that keep us separated. Luminosity and clarity. At its core, Buddha nature is associated with the radiant clarity of mind. This is awareness. This is that imagination, that seat of the soul we were talking about before. This is what creation and creativity come. Referred to as luminosity. This luminosity represents a base level awareness that is inherently free from confusion, delusion, obscuration, and can be experienced directly when mental veils are removed. Again, the stories we're laying on ourselves are free. We can have this direct experience. Accessible through contemplation and practice. This is how we get there, right? While the base awareness is ever present, recognizing the Buddha nature requires turning inward and shedding habit patterns of thought, like old ways of thinking, and allowing new ways to be, sometimes with no thought. So you'll hear that term in Buddhism a lot, where no thought is a place we're trying to get to so that we can connect with that deepest self, that ultimate potential that lies before manifestation. We're all still connected to it. Through meditation, mindfulness, ethical living, right? Not adding more dramas to our lives. The conditioned layers of the mind are gradually peeled back. So different philosophers have different ways of talking about this. Like Rumi talks about the burning of the self, and what remains is what the self actually is, what the burning, that feeling, that release, that fear, the pain and suffering we can go through when tower moments in life happen and we have to be separated from things we cling to, right? We recognize that those things are not, right? We have to release that gradually over time, and more can be released. The more, again, balanced and it's a hard word to say, equanimity of the mind, that balanced state of being is maintained, right? We're not being thrown off by what the world is showing. The Wheel of Samsara is a huge depiction. It's a beautiful story of how energies of life go through different sectors. Really, what I wanted to bring into this conversation is this center wheel. This everything revolves around these three things as an individual. And that is, we go through every karmic lesson and growth opportunity in this life to get better at these particular three things. So the core of the wheel, the thing that keeps everything in motion for us, is represented in this picture by three animals, right? The pig, the snake, and the rooster. So at the center of that wheel, it's symbolizing the root causes of suffering that drive the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, right, in this world. So the first one to talk about is ignorance, not knowing any better. And as young people who think we know it all by the time we're 18, recognize by the time we're 30 that was a crock. And now it's really time to live. And how the hell am I going to keep up with all these bills, right? Like, there's layers of knowledge, and there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. It's just you haven't had that experience to compare it to yet. So we're going to make mistakes. We're going to learn, and we shouldn't hold judgments against that learning. Ignorance isn't a bad word. It's just a state of what I've been able to perceive. Desire is symbolized by the rooster. So it embodies craving and attachment, leading to clinging to particular things that we enjoy, okay? So chasing is a big piece of that as well, going after desires. If I reach this, then I'll be fulfilled, is a common line. Money, chasing money, is a big piece of that for a lot of people. If I make this much, then I'll be okay. And I know a lot of wealthy people that are still not okay, and they just keep upping the bar of why they're still not satisfied. We tend to do this with our goals, even if we reach our goals often. The nature of the desire that runs this wheel, we'll talk about in detail here in just a second. The third animal is the snake, and it signifies basically aversion, right? How do we get out of situations? So anger, hatred, fear, driving negative actions and reactions that keep us trapped in that cycle. Every time, so this is a personal story for me. I recognize I'm stuck in aversion when I have a mental loop playing more than 3 times, right? My creativity can get there and I can be like, oh, okay, that's an interesting scenario. But by the time I've gone through that the third time, I recognize that I'm trapped in a cycle where I'm just repeating, well, what about this? What about that? I got to protect myself from that potential. I can't be there. I recognize that I get stuck in those places and I have to learn to come back to that balanced space, right? Interdependence of these 3 animals, right? They're usually shown biting each other's tail, illustrating how ignorance, desire, and aversion are interconnected. They mutually reinforce themselves. In a later conversation, I would love to talk about the law of the pendulum. And basically, that's where the chasing of desire sets up the things that we want to run away from. And we're swinging from this pendulum of back and forth, positive, negative things that we're running from. We're chasing. And the key of that perspective, again, is to be in the middle, appreciative of the now, however it's representing or showing. So the path to liberation, right? The way of getting off of this wheel is overcoming the defilements through mindfulness, ethical conduct, and wisdom. That is the essential for breaking free. And it's really, there's in the Buddhist culture, there is an 8-fold path. And it basically walks you through, the beginning of it is things to stop doing that keep hurting you and things to start doing to improve your life. And, it's stuff like do no harm. First rule, do no harm. Second rule, speak the truth. And between the first and second rule is one of the hardest things to do in life, which is to speak the truth with compassion. So you're not hurting and breaking people down, but you're helping them build themselves to the next level. That's something that is a very difficult thing for me sometimes, is speaking the truth with compassion and love so that it's helpful and not something that hinders somebody's work. Anyway, we'll dive into these again. Ignorance, not knowing any better, right? In the Wheel of Samsara, ignorance is the primary cause that sets all other karmic conditions, okay? It's what keeps this stuff in motion, not knowing any better. One of the fundamental things that drives this is the illusion of our reality that I tried to describe last time. The impermanence of everything is something that we as humans lose track of, right? It's not the house I live in. It's not the car. It's not how my boss thinks of me, right? All of those structures are self-imposed human structures. Our spirits are much, much bigger than those limiting spaces we put ourselves in. So the ignorance of that separation, that unity consciousness, that forgetting that we are part of everything, is what leads to the clinging on to the happy spots that we have, or running away from the painful spots that we have, right? Recognizing that we are bigger than all of the spots most of the time. It leaves us in these spaces where we tend to cling. So perpetuating misperceptions. Ignorance obscures the true nature of self and existence, okay? By mistaking fleeting sensations, thoughts, and identities as permanent things, which nothing is permanent, okay? Individuals remain bound by the cycle, continuously seeking fulfillment in transient conditions that cannot bring lasting peace. Again, this is the nature of desire we'll talk about in just a minute. The path to liberation, the path to yourself free, right? The releasing of being trapped by these things involves cultivating wisdom through study, introspection, and meditation. By directly observing the nature of mind and phenomena, one gradually dissolves false assumptions and sees reality as it is. An insight that breaks the chain of samsara that leads towards genuine liberation. We'll talk about setting up the mind for how it can release and certain stories, as you pull the string of the mind, can release many parts because the mind is basically a knot of experience. Desire. One of the driving forces of the wheel, again, is desire. One of the oldest manuscripts that exists is the Laws of Menu. And basically, it's telling you the nature of desire, right? It will never be quenched. Nothing can ever be satiated. There is temporary reprieve from desires when they're temporarily satisfied. But the nature of desire is to keep burning whatever you add to it. So if you're struggling with a particular habit, some people have drug addiction, sex addiction, different things that pull them. And they try to go and relieve those emotional tensions or places that are uncomfortable in themselves. But every time they go into a particular desire to fulfill, the need or level to fill always grows. It always takes more to fill desire the longer you hold on to that particular desire. So there's no way to ever satiate every desire. That's just, it's an illusion we chase. This analogy highlights that indulging in desires does not lead to satisfaction, but instead intensifies them. Similar to how adding fuel to a fire burn more and more fiercely, right, within us. And it takes more to fill those spots that we were trying to fill with smaller desires. There's no running in that direction will never be fulfilled. Aversion. Aversion is the escaping portion, running away from this particular bit. Aversion can look like anger, right? If somebody's coming at you judging, you can become angry to try to get them to go away. So those are just different ways that aversion can face. Aversion arises as a reflective attempt to protect oneself from perceived threats, pain, anything that we don't want to experience. And there's plenty in life that isn't comfortable, right? This often leads to avoidance and resistance rather than open engagement with reality. And if we are avoiding reality at so many intervals, then we can get askew from what reality is for a lot of other people if we're only running away from ourselves. Conditioned habit that can be transformed through aversion, right? Learning to deal with this automatic running away, right? Aversion is not an unchangeable trait. It's just we have to bring awareness. Again, awareness is that first start is, why am I running? What is going on here? What is the story that is propelling me to get the hell out of this situation, right? There's a story there. There's a discomfort there. And through that awareness, bringing it into the situation is where we can start finding those driving subconscious forces in our own life, that shadow work we were talking about last time, and freeing our own power from those old stories so that we can just become our truest selves. So the mind is a beautiful tool. It's one of the best tools that human relays on all the time, but it gets messy in the mind, right? There's things, there's secrets, there's stuff that we entangle in our thoughts. There's experience in life that I will never tell anybody about this. And this, over the time, the mind becomes this marbled knot of our perceived reality, right? So I'm just trying to illustrate this this convoluted thing where in some conversations we can have a certain stance, and in another conversation we can take a 180 and see it from a whole different perspective. But those two views shouldn't line up, but for some reason they line up in our head because we're in this knot where only this is right and only that is right. And we have to learn how to deal with this thing that is the holder of the filters that keep us from that true being experience, right? So rather than forcefully unraveling the mind's knot, like pulling on things, meditation is that tool that helps us understand and clear the mind so we can actually do good work in the mind. We're not pulling on a knot that's already super tight. We have to create a space in the mind where it somewhat unravels itself, and then we can work through particular stories as we're trying to understand ourselves. Again, in the aversion scenario, what am I running away from? What is the story that tells me I'm unsafe here? And then how do I unravel that story? So by simply observing the knots as they arise, what's the story? What's going on? How do I feel about it, right? What judgment or attempts to fix them? You allow the tension to loosen on its own, right? You're in this practice of building awareness. We have to understand more of ourselves. So steady and anchored awareness through consistent focus on a simple anchor like breath. We're going to go through some samples of this, but this is why meditative practitioners deal with simple things like breath in and out, a candle, a light, something that you can focus on. There's lots of ways to bring the plethora of the mind, all of the stories, all of the chaos, all of the traumas of the day into a place where we sit down and clear a space internally. It's helpful to focus on one thing so the energy of all those other thoughts can settle for a minute. Okay? That's what that anchored awareness is trying to get us into. So, embracing the stillness and compassion, infusing the meditation with kindness and patience helps soften the knots, right? Recognizing that we're just humans, stop judging ourselves. That self-judgment is what holds most of that mental activity in motion, right? Well, I can't make a mistake here. I got to do that. Okay. What about this person? They asked this question. Or maybe I don't understand that. So I got to do something better. I got to do some research because I don't feel okay with my understanding today. They got to be better. You know, these things that go through our heads are just stories that we need to meet with compassion, self-compassion, and less judgment of self, right? So we can get to our true awareness. Mental state of awareness. This is basically just stating that if left alone, the human mind goes to 4 places. Those places are the past or the future, right? Those are the 2 times remembering something of the past that we either liked or disliked, or in the future, something that we're excited about or something we're afraid about. And so it's this tension in the world where we're always not here. Here and now is where every effort comes so we can actually change our lives. It's here and now that we face our shadow. It's here and now that we heal our traumas. And if we sit for 10 minutes to try to have our own thought or own space in our own head, you'll recognize when you start to get into this practice of meditation that your mind is going to jump to the past or the future about a story that is either something you want to repeat or something you are afraid of dealing with, right? And so we're always being pulled outside of the here and now as we're trying to deal with life. And the more practice you have with understanding the here and now, that I'm not here and now, the more awareness you can bring to whatever is showing up, right? And again, what I'm trying to convey is awareness is a beautiful tool that we lose track of when we get identified in the stories we're living. So again, somebody comes at you and starts yelling at you, you're going to be defensive, right? But learning how to be here and now in the defensiveness, you can create the space rather than doing a story in your head. Well, I got to take care of myself. This person's going to hurt me. I got to run away. I got to do this. You're allowing the space for all that mental chatter to just go on its path, but you're not attached to it. So you can handle whatever's happening with the most awareness and compassion in them. Okay? So finding the now. Here's a couple of tricks. See how we're doing on time. I'm doing great. Finding the now is more about taking this beautiful tool, which is the mind, which is the ability of consciousness to create, to look through scenarios, to look into the future, to say, hey, what goals do I want to create for myself? What are the things I want to not repeat, right? That would be looking into the past with conscious awareness of the now. Most of the time, we don't have that conscious awareness of the now. Our mind is just that river of constant flowing thought. What about this? What about that? Oh, something popped up. Oh, I got a text message. Oh, my husband needs a thing. Oh, my daughter needs more money. Da 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 da. It's always around us swirling. It's almost like a learning how to be in the eye of a hurricane with balance and peace and joy, while you're just watching everything around you swirl and chaos. It's like, cool. All right, well, I can reach out and help that person, or I can, that person needs something, but I'm not being torn asunder by that swirling energy that is the world around me. Right? That is what finding the now feels like. So in many cultures, they talk about this like the monkey mind. They've coined the term monkey mind. The monkey mind is just our thoughts. And it's whenever you're sitting or trying to be real with whatever's happening in your life, if you're paying attention to your mind, having mindfulness, you'll recognize that even when you're trying to take 5 minutes to quiet the mind will grab onto a thought. It will then go, oh, here's a emotional reaction to that thought. And then you'll grab onto another thought and then grab onto another thought. And it just keeps swinging like a monkey on vines, thought to thought to thought to thought to thought. And then you come back to yourself and go, holy crap, how'd I get there? Right? Like, how did I go from sitting here in meditation to like 20 thoughts down the road, and I'm back into my suffering, my stress, all the chaos that's in my head? That is the definition of that monkey mind, just chasing thought to thought. In meditation, what we're learning is how to accept that as a natural state of our mind, but recognize when it's happening. So it just is easier to come back over time to wherever we're at. So if we're doing a breath meditation and focusing on breath, and that mind goes from thought to thought, thinking about taxes, and I'm thinking about this, I recognize that my mind is not where I want it to be, and without judgment, I just bring it back to where I'm at, right? It's learning to pay attention to the thoughts. It's learning that they're gonna do what they're gonna do themselves, and I don't have to be attached to them. I just have to be aware of them so that they lose their power, okay? So impact on well-being. The monkey mind can create that anxiety, stress, confusion, keeping individuals trapped in cycles, right? Again, when you get that loop, when you recognize you've had a loop more than 3 times, there's some emotional thing that's keeping that fire burning, just recycle. Every time you recycle a thought and add more energy to it through emotion, it just means that you have to wait that much longer for the fire to burn out, because energy is that way. It needs to dissipate. And coming back to a thought that is irritating and adding more frustration, emotional energy to that thought only keeps it in your system longer. So that's why we create spaces of meditation where that energy, those thoughts can come up, and then we just release them so that we're not adding more fuel to that internal flow. So one of the first things I want to talk about is Anapana. Anapana is what Buddha, the first Buddha, there's many Buddha. If you don't know, Buddha is a term, not a name. It means enlightened. Gautama Buddha, 2,300 years ago, 2,400 years ago, I can't remember, originally taught Anapana and Vipassana. And these were breathing and awareness meditations, best way to describe them, that allowed the awareness to sharpen and then to be used. So Anapana is the training wheels. It is the tutorial that sharpens the mind. And so when you're starting in a practice of Anapana, what you want to do is you want to focus on the nose, which is the top of the nose and the bottom of the nose, right above the lip. And you're just going to create a triangle of sensations of the nose. And you're going to spend, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes a day, try 3 days a week for a month or so. And all you're doing in that space is focusing on the nose. And what you'll get over time is a relaxed mind. You'll recognize that as soon as you sit and try to do a practice of focusing on your nose, your mind will start talking about your day or your girlfriend or your boss or other things. And you are actively taking those thoughts, recognizing the monkey mind and coming back to the nose. So that's the first part of this training wheel, is learning how to recognize thoughts when they pop up and bring them back to where you're trying to be, which is centered here and now. Once you get good with that releasing of the mind, what you'll recognize is you can get more and more subtle with the awareness of the nose. And what I mean by that is you'll start to feel like tingles on the skin of the nose. You can feel whether the breath is hot, whether the breath is cold, whether one nostril is working better than the other, or whether your breathing is not patient and smooth, or you're holding on to your breath. So that awareness starts to broaden as you become more and more sensitive to this one part of the body. So that's what you're learning in this Anapana. You're just focusing on this triangle piece, trying to get as sharp of an awareness to this space. And all that's doing is sharpening that awareness. And you'll recognize how difficult that is for most people in the first minute and a half. Most people struggle with this because of the monkey mind. And just giving yourself a routine place to allow that mental awareness to sharpen. So again, you're aware when the mind starts to jump from branch to branch, and you bring it back to center more quicker, with more ease, less resistance. That's what we're learning how to do in this, as well as sharpen the awareness of the overall mind awareness body connection. Once we sharpen the mind, we move into the Vipassana piece, which was kind of the Buddhist starting point, really. So Buddha was more about the internal nature of awareness, where Christianity focused on the external nature of awareness. They're both the same circle. Awareness is that the dragon eating its own tail. It's all cycles of the same thing. It's just different reference points going inwards. So Vipassana is taking that sharpened awareness that we learned in the mind and then applying it to the top of the head and moving through the body to the bottom of the feet, and then from the feet back up to the top of the head. And you just move this awareness through your body slowly over time, and you'll get more and more subtle understandings and awareness of existence as it is, not as the mind makes it up to be with the filter of the mind. But the point of this particular meditation is to understand reality as it is happening here and now more and more, right? It's easier for us as humans to be distracted and pulled into stories and forget our body, to forget our beingness. This is just a small moment in a day where you take the opportunity to meet yourself at a deeper and deeper level. These are skills that help build and sharpen that awareness of self. And again, when you get into the situations of life, again, somebody's coming at you, yelling and screaming, these types of exercises will show up in those moments where your mind will react. You're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And then you'll see that trigger in the mind and you go, oh, I know how to bring this back to center. And then you can meet that engagement with compassion rather than fear and aversion. So these are those skills that start to mold together as we become more and more aware of our own authenticity, right? Our own, that eye of the storm, subtle, joyful space that we create while the rest of the world is in chaos around us. So practice, I would love to set up time to do a practice of a Anapanasati session and a Vipassana session for anybody that's interested. This presentation again was made for a weekend retreat where I would, do a half-hour session with people just to give them experience, but we don't have time for that right now. So once we start to dive into the self and really bring that new awareness, the awareness that is below that monkey mind that's always grabbing for things, right? Trying to attach to things, trying to run away from things. We learn how to sharpen ourselves, our own awareness. And one of those gifts that comes from that is discernment. Discernment is really our ability to understand what is good for us or what is difficult for us or not in our path. Almost instantaneous. You can feel it in your body's intuition whether this is right for me or wrong for me. If you can, again, learn how to settle, build that self-awareness, that internal awareness, you'll feel your body say, no, get me out of here, or yeah, let's go do this, right? There's ways to learn that for yourself. So sharpening perception here. Let me check the chat. Oh, okay, awesome. Okay. Sharpening perception, right? This is what we're doing with awareness as we're building awareness. Meditation enhances clarity and focus. It allows you to see situations, thoughts, and emotions, right? That's the hardest part for us to see in the moment, is the emotional responses more objectively and discern truth from illusion, right? What am I reacting to? Is this my own story, or is it something in reality that I need to react to? There's a difference. Quieting the noises of the mind, right? Calming that mind from all that monkey mind, that jumping from branch to branch. Meditation reduces the mental chatter, helping you distinguish between genuine intuition and reactive impulses. What's right for me? What's something I'm running away from because of a past trauma, right? You can start to feel those different reactions inside yourself and make a calm decision in the moment. You're not just reacting. Connecting to inner wisdom, regular practice strengthens your connection to your inner self, fostering a deeper understanding of what aligns to your values and higher purpose. Now, I started meditating years ago. My goal was 15 minutes 3 times a week for the first year. After the first year, I got such a benefit from it that I just started meditating daily. And if I don't meditate, like if I miss a day, by the second day, I can feel myself being out of alignment and more agitated because I don't have that space within myself just to come back to calm while I'm watching everybody else react to the world. So this is a growth thing. This is how do you want to live your life? Suffering, reacting to the world around you, or at peace and in love with whatever's showing up in your space and your life. I choose the latter. I choose to show up to the chaos of this world with love and compassion. And these spaces allow me to do that with deeper compassion. So, creating space for reflection, right? Like I do this daily. Meditation provides a pause to reflect, enabling thoughtful evaluation before making decisions or judgment. Now, the more routinely you show up for yourself daily, the more impactful this particular thing is when situations arise in life. Now, the hardest thing to do is be in a situation and recognize you're reacting, and then pull yourself out of the reaction and go, oh, okay, I saw myself react. Right? It's hard when you have that emotional reaction to a thing and to say, okay, outside of my emotion, outside of my thoughts, outside of the judgment I'm making about the situation, how can I get to the truth of it with the most peace and love? Right? That's a skill. So strengthening your intuition, right? Learning this response. You hear through your gut, you see through your third eye, right? Trying to hear. Over time, meditation hones your ability to trust your inner guidance, improving your capacity to discern what is right for you in any instantaneous situation. Whatever's happening in the moment, you will learn to check yourself in your own being. Is this right? Where am I? What do I need to do with this? Right? Rather than just habitually reacting to things out of an old perceived way. So we're creating the space to make a different decision, which will change our lives, maybe to grow, right? This is the art of transmutation. This is alchemy of the self, right? This is taking the shadows, what we're reacting to, afraid to. We're taking the time to understand what's in those stories to pull our power out of the shadows and claiming it for ourselves and how we want to express with full light, full love, full authenticity. So, transmutation, right? Releasing the old patterns. That's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to a higher state of beingness by recognizing and holding space for your limiting stories and beliefs rather than suppressing or denying them, right? You're not pushing them down. You're challenging them. What is this trying to tell me? Why am I afraid of this thing, right? You begin a natural process of transmutation in this safe, reflective environment that you're creating yourself. Stagnant energies transform from burdensome blocks to raw minerals for growth. This is the power that is held in our subconscious that we've been afraid to express, right? That we unlock through challenging our own inner shadows. Fueling inner evolution. Once liberated from rigid narratives, right? I can't do this because of blank. I can't do that. Once we release those things we've made up or been taught, the energy bound up in old wounds or fears can be redirected. Instead of depleting your vitality, this formally limiting force becomes a catalyst that fuel new understandings, resilience, and personal expansion. Once you are free to make a different decision because you're not holding yourself restrained, you're now able to create whatever you're choosing to create. Most people don't create what doesn't align with their passions, right? So don't be afraid of going down the wrong hole when you're following what brings you joy in the moment. That's your expression. That's your juice, right? Taking the limiting beliefs out is what gives you more juice for what you truly create and grow. Cultivating expanded awareness. Each act of transmutation depends on your capacity to remain present, right? Knowing that here and now is where everything is done. Okay, even if you're uncomfortable, even if you're uncertain. Over time, this nurtures a more nuanced awareness, enabling you to meet all experience, pleasant or challenging, with clarity, compassion, and evolving sense of purpose. Again, staying balanced as the world comes at us from different angles, without those judgments, without those reactional stories that used to just trigger us and push us in particular ways, however that manifests for the individual, right? So, key takeaways for today. You are more than your old stories. Just recognize that. Your awareness, the ability to refine your awareness and challenge the old beliefs will create the space to create any new story. We all carry habitual patterns and limiting beliefs that shape how we view the world. by recognizing these ingrained perspectives. How did I get this? Where does this come from? Understanding they are not fixed realities, we open to the possibility of growth. Your past does not define your future. By questioning family or familiar stories and your family stories, obviously not a Freudian slip, we get a lot of these preconceived notions by how we came into this world. You start to empower yourself to rewrite them in any way you choose. Consciousness is the creative force, that creative imaginary play, imagination where we come with our ideas, with our hopes, with our dreams, all of those things, right? That is consciousness being created. Just as quantum theory suggests that reality unfolds the field of infinite potential, we too can draw from a wellspring of inner potential. Everything that potential manifesting in reality through the quantum field is the same as our inside subconscious expressing. Once we free those limiting beliefs, that repressed energy is now just free to move through our lives and create the world we want to create. Finding space between stimulus and response. This is that witness state, that ability to pull yourself out of the story. Through practices like meditation, we can create a pause, a gentle space between what happens to us and how we respond. In that pause lies our freedom. This is where we get to choose new paths rather than habitual responses. Rather than being driven by automatic reactions, you can choose thoughtful, compassionate, and purposeful responses. How can I build to this rather than tear it down? Right? These shifts reveal your power to guide and the course of your own life and how you choose to maneuver yourself down that river. Embrace the now to transcend fear and aversion by meeting your fears, aversions, and tensions with mindful curiosity. Again, it's not the situation we're in, but it's the challenging of what is this story telling me? How did I get this story? You know, you're creating this playful place where you can gain your own insights. Those old stories will gradually loosen the hold on you. This allows you to witness the changing nature of thoughts and emotions, recognizing that they are not constant. The only constant is change, right? Stepping into a state of greater peace, resilience, and openness. In learning to stay present, you find that every moment is an opportunity for renewal. The only moment is now, recognizing that if you're in the future or past, you're either clinging on to something in the future or the past, or you're running away from something in the future or the past. It's very rare that we just have ho-hum thoughts about, oh, what did I eat last Tuesday? It's usually, oh, that person told me this and it really riled me up. Right? You're attached to the story that's repeating. That's where the power is. That's where you're going to gain that power back when you challenge those stories. So understand that your perceptions are influenced by past conditioning, attachment, and aversion enables you to see more clearly. This clarity is liberating. As you shed ignorance and confusion, you reconnect with the deeper truth of who you are. Your inherent wisdom and compassion begin to shine through, guiding you towards meaningful, value-driven living, right? You get to choose when you have this space to be reactionary or to be conscious. Consciousness is where the power, it's the power of everything. So the more conscious you can bring to any situation, the more power you hold in that situation. So, in closing, align with your deeper calling, right? When you align with your actions and intentions, with your authentic purpose, life gains vibrancy and meaning. Your unique values, talents, and passions become a compass. That's your discernment, right? Is this right for me? Is this not? Guiding you through both challenges and triumphs, right? Learning how to be in both situations with peace. Acting from this place of inner alignment transforms struggles into stepping stones and dreams into reality. And that's because we get to choose our reality. We get to choose what filters we want to hold on to or which filters we want to release because they cause us suffering. And we no longer want to believe that way or think that way, right? Sometimes worthiness or self-limiting beliefs need to be released so we can create something completely new for us. So, thank you. Just wanted to open it up for anybody that wants to share.
Hi, Josh.
Hi.
I have a question, because I didn't know about Anapana, this nose thing.
Okay.
How can you, I'm not really visualizing it. You're just going in a triangle or
Sure.
up,
So,
just keep going around a circle?
yeah. Sorry. Here we go. Does that help? So, in this particular training, right? Recognize that every meditative master has a way of awareness of what's happening now. So in Anapana, we're going to focus on between the where the pineal gland is, the top of the nose, down to the bottom of the nose. And sometimes with breath, you can feel it tickle like my mustache. I can feel the little hairs going in my nose. What you're doing by just focusing on this little piece is you're trying to get the awareness of the breath as refined as possible, right? So when you first start this practice, again, the first thing that's going to happen is, oh, last Tuesday somebody cut me off and I'm pissed off, right? It has nothing to do with breath. It has to do with recognizing the brain keeps jumping and I've got to bring it back. So once you've gotten to the practice of bringing that mind back to here and now, I'm just focusing on this breath. I'm focusing on this piece of me. It will easily get more refined. At the beginning, you'll just feel maybe the coldness of the skin on the top of your nose. Sometimes you'll feel the tickle of the hairs on your nose. Sometimes you'll feel the heat of the breath. Sometimes you'll feel the coolness of the breath. And again, all you're doing is stopping the rest of the mind from coming at you because you're doing a particular task and just getting to the small piece of you and learning how to stop the mind from flooding you at all, right? One of the hardest things for most people is just the mind keeps going and we don't get a reprieve. So this is the training wheels, is learning how to find that reprieve space in yourself. And then once you got that awareness sharpened, you just apply that same type of awareness through the body.
And Josh, good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Isn't the next step in Vipassana anyway, they do 10-day silent retreats, Rose. So after you figure out how to do this, you go and you be quiet for 10 days.
Yeah, well, I meditate. I do Isha, Isha Foundation. I did all of that. So I meditate 21 minutes. But I wanted to know if it was in a circle, was it up and down? But it's kind of you just focusing on the triangle.
All you're doing is trying to say, in this space of my awareness, what is my current awareness of this? And over time, how do I get more refined awareness? Because you're trying to find the subtleties in it, right? And that's the sharpening of the awareness, going into very subtle, particular ways of manifestation, right? Rather than the gross mind, which is, oh, it's hot outside, I'm sweating, right? You're getting to a more refined, oh, okay, this nostril's going, that nostril's stuck. And you're just getting the mind to come into a sharper and sharper point. Without, again, what happened last Tuesday? What am I afraid of? What bill did I forget to pay? Da 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 da. Right? You're trying to create space inside.
You're not focusing on the breath going in and out. You're focusing on the nose so that it brings you always back to the nose.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Learning how to not get carried away by the mind, right? That's really the beauty of the practice, is recognizing I'm not here, come back. Recognize I'm not here, and come back, right? Because it's going to happen lots and lots of times. It just happens less and less.
Yep. And then we'll do the 10-day silence.
Yeah, I have done the 10-day, and it's
I
beautiful.
want to do that so bad someday.
Like a baby, day 3 and 4, right? And it all came out of me. It was beautiful.
Nice.
So anyway, that's why I offer these kind of subtle things as a starting point. For a lot of people, they get scared of meditation or what that means. What is meditation, right? And I can't do that. And it's more about just creating that space inside that you can reprieve to in any circumstance, right? Like I've got a space here that, you know, a nuclear bomb could go off in my window and I'd be like, okay, let's go. Right? Like you just have to be able to be okay with whatever's happening around you and meet it with compassion rather than, again, that desire clinging or aversion of running away or whatever judgment I'm making. It's learning how to be here and now with the most open and balanced me I can bring. Any other
Hi,
questions?
Neil. Is that your wife? Who's that? Daughter? I can't tell.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Neil's wife. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Well, if there's questions, yeah, I appreciate everybody coming out and listening. If you want to process and have feedback or other things, I love listening. Again, I was trying to think about it earlier today of why I enjoy this. I feel like I'm a human farmer. I just like to spread seeds of thoughts, and whatever helps people is awesome. You know, it will find.
Josh, it was a great presentation. Thank you so much. Kata went to her dad was a Buddhist in Colorado and brought Buddhism to Colombia. So she grew up studying Buddhism. He just did a presentation, not just on Buddhism, but on Buddhism.
Oh, cool.
And so it's pretty, sometimes it's funny. It's like you think you know it, but it helps you to go back to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to just, again, bring the here and now back into every moment.
Yeah.
So powerful, right? It's so powerful.
And today, I'll just speak for myself. I kind of went off in the Valentine's collective consciousness wave, of, it is interesting. Like you think you maybe wouldn't be in a certain wave anymore, and then something comes up collectively and you're like, oh, there I am again.
Yep.
Alright. Yeah.
I got flowers. I got the chocolates. I did my shopping. So
That was a beautiful presentation. All your presentations are beautiful. It's nice to see all of you here. And thank you for doing this. I appreciate it a lot. And I received a lot here. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
thank you. You guys have a beautiful night.
Okay.
Yeah.
You too. Lots of love.
Bye. Good night.
See you
Bye.
later.
Nice to meet you.
Bye.
Nice to meet you, Rose. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Good
Katya.
night, guys.
Mhm.